If you would like to earn CPE credit for listening to the show, visit earmarkcpe.com/FPA. Download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. Finally, if you enjoy listening to FP&A today, please go to your podcast platform of choice, click the subscribe button, and leave a rating and review of the show. And now, on to the show.
From data rails, this is FP&A Today.
Welcome to FP&A Today. I'm your host, Glenn Hopper. And joining us today is Pavels Cvetkovs, an accomplished finance professional with over a decade of expertise in FP&A, corporate finance, and strategic planning. Pavels currently serves as the FP&A director at the Carlsberg Group, where he has played a pivotal role in driving the company's financial health, strategic growth, and sustainability initiatives. With a career spanning finance roles in FP&A, supply chain, and M&A, Pavels has been at the forefront of innovation and operational excellence in finance. He brings a wealth of experience from companies like PwC and Ernst & Young, and gained experience being a co-founder of a small startup. We're thrilled to dive into Pavels' journey and gain insights from his wealth of experience. Pavels, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Let's get started. Let's dive in. Take me through your career and maybe going all the way back. Tell me how you got into FP&A and finance and take us up to where you are now.
I think my finance career started to some extent accidentally. Finishing the school, I was not really sure actually where I would like to go. And then I think how it's usually happening, you look around, what's the inspiration of your classmates, and then you probably try to copy. And I had one classmate who was very obsessed with investments and financial markets. So I decided, why don't I go actually to finance? So I decided to step in a finance program in a bachelor. Started with this overall understanding of how finance are organized and structured. And very soon I realized that actually I would like to get more practical experience. Theory is always nice. But as you know, the practical experience is something which opens full understanding on the area where you are going to work and develop. Somehow I got to this feeling and understanding that the good start actually would be from the consultancy company. So after the first grade, I actually started already working. I managed to find a part-time job. I joined an accounting company and started my professional kind of experience in there. Very soon I realized that there are actually better companies, or actually the better environment where you can get maybe more qualitative knowledge and experience. And one of that companies was Ernst & Young, a Big Four company. And that's how I joined there. I think I spent around 4 years working in auditing and assurance services. And after that, somehow realized that I'm not really willing anymore to continue with auditing field as such, and having so many engagements or projects in that time, I had a great chance to see how many different industries are set up, and especially as well as companies, and somehow decided that probably it's a time now to move into one of the industry and start focusing specifically within one industry. That pretty much was my my path to FP&A. That time, of course, it was not really explicit FP&A. I think it's the first job I got was called a business controller. Yeah, typical business controller in finance, which was doing both main functions of controlling the financial performance, but also doing some planning. Today, in many organizations, this controlling is also separated from financial planning activities.
I think that your background as doing audit and then controllership, I mean, that is a foundation. And I think you can't do good FP&A without a solid understanding of GAAP or IFRS or the accounting principles, and understanding the accrual side and all the details that go into building the foundation of the data you're working with. Do you find that, doing your FP&A, do you still, I know you moved on happily from audit, but do you find yourself kind of looking back to those days or looking back at controllership and realizing that the skill set that you took from that is still applicable?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually consider that the auditing experience or working for one of these big four companies is equally going through the finance military school.
Yeah.
It's actually it's so much information which you are exposed to, and you learn it so quickly. I think that's actually the most efficient way of getting through the practical understanding of what is accounting, what is management accounting, and as you mentioned, in international financial reporting standards or international accounting standards. So you get actually the knowledge which is absolutely valuable for FP&A further, I guess, and that's what I consider as a probably a base. Because of course, at the end of the day, what FP&A does or expected to do is to be able to read the numbers and translate them in a meaningful, clear way to its stakeholders and top management. Of course, it's not going to be only management reports where you extract this information from. So you should be literate with international financial reporting standards.
Going straight from audit to beer drinking, I want to talk about Carlsberg Group. So, tell us about your company, what Carlsberg Group does, and kind of the essential things that finance people need to know about Carlsberg and its industry. Because when we have guests on, I love to always hear about the different kind of KPIs we track and everything, and the approach at your company and just across the industry to FP&A.
Yeah, sure, it was a pleasure. So, Carlsberg company, what it actually stands out maybe from its peers. I think first is the innovation in brewing, big emphasis on sustainability. But what is also interesting to know that the shareholder structure is pretty distinct. The company is largely controlled by Carlsberg Foundation, so that unique setup differentiates it from many its peers in the global beer industry. So the foundation focuses on the long-term health and sustainability of the company. Back in the days, founded by J.C. Jacobsen, had the mission to support scientific research and art and culture, and also today dividends from Carlsberg received by foundation are used to fund these philanthropic activities. You can say that the shareholders are not only chasing the purely profit, but also support the broader societal contributions. It would be interesting to talk also about industry as such, because as on your show, Glenn, there are many representatives from different industries, and then when we talk about FP&A, then of course it has its own specific within the industry. Maybe just briefly try to explain you what's so special about beer and beverage industry.
Yeah.
I think first of all, it's a highly dynamic sector with its own specific practices, processes, and also reporting requirements. So beverage companies share also common financial structures with other industries, but also face distinct challenges that shape the organization and reporting. In beverage industry, financial organization typically aligns with global and regional scale of the company. Its operational structure can be either centralized or decentralized. It also probably correlates with the size of the company. And talking about global beverage companies like us, we do have a centralized finance functions at corporate level, but also regional finance teams overseeing specific geographies. Talking about specifics in finance area, the beverage industry faces unique challenges if we compare it to some other industries. Again, first of all, it's around inventory management. It's about sales seasonality and then of course multi-currency operations. So just maybe picking up some examples on revenue streams. Often in our industry, there are a mix of revenue streams. So it can be direct sales to retailers, distributors, or online platforms, or directly to stores, or licensing. And And typically also sales are followed by a complex discounts compilation, which requires often solid accounting guidelines and, of course, a good support from the systems. When it comes to cost accounting, can be very complex, especially when it comes to cost of goods sold. So understanding and planning of those typically require also advanced ERP systems, which can handle the complex cost allocations. So overall, supply chain finance area in beverage industry is a very standalone, unique area. Requires its own processes and specific techniques in how you approach the cost planning and analysis as well. And of course, as you can imagine, the beverage companies are also capital intensive companies, so often invest heavily in production plants and production lines and distribution networks. So that creates a necessity of having long-term demand planning on pretty granular also level, for example, on the packaging level. Yeah, that's just to give you an overview of how complex this environment is.
Yeah. And then I guess you add in there too, I mean, with perishable items. So you have the supply chain, you're trying to forecast, you have inventory, you have, timestamps on the inventory basically of when it has to move by. So I imagine the forecasting is very difficult on that front.
Yeah, true. And of course, the forecasting and budgeting process is the process which involves a very high level of collaboration between the departments, either within the big finance department or departments, as you mentioned, between sales and logistics and production and marketing. It's pretty heavy process when it comes to budgeting here, and I think that's actually also one of the things which makes this FP&A job and specifically in this industry very, very much exciting.
Yeah, and I guess let's dig into that a little more about. So we've gotten through budget season. Now we're fully into 2025. You guys are on calendar year, right?
Yes.
Walk me through kind of the setup of FP&A and the sort of the philosophy and outputs from your FP&A team.
I think in this case, we are pretty much consistent and pretty logical. So finance organization tries to render services also following the structural setup. And so having a business partner in every function, as mentioned before, so production, logistics, marketing, sales, etc. Some business unit actually may have more of business partner roles within the department. So it pretty much also correlates with the priorities and certain tasks which are defined by top management in this specific business unit. As you can imagine, therefore, when it comes to deliverables of FP&A, it's also different, of course. Pretty much, if we talk about KPIs in a single function, I think the number can reach up to 10, 20 KPIs. And it's not necessary that all these KPIs would be, tracked on, let's say, on a top management level at the end of the day. Of course, I think performance management reporting, which lands on the table of executive committee or board, is way more condensed. It does contain only, I think, traditional, so to say, maybe metrics like revenue growth and EBIT margin and something maybe about cost structures. While these functional KPIs, of course, are very vital and to be tracked and analyzed and also planned properly. I think it's a very operational thing. Things related to production, to productivity or efficiency or utilization or waste or health and safety and quality. So all these metrics are all important, but they are just coming through maybe different stage of the process.
FP&A Today is brought to you by Data Rails, the world's #1 FP&A solution. Data Rails is the artificial intelligence-powered financial planning and analysis platform built for Excel users. That's right, you can stay in Excel. But instead of facing hell for every budget, month-end close, or forecast, you can enjoy a paradise of data consolidation, advanced visualization, reporting, and AI capabilities. Plus, game-changing insights giving you instant answers and your story created in seconds. Find out why more than 1,000 finance teams use Data Rails to uncover their company's real story. Don't replace Excel, embrace Excel. Learn more at datarails.com. You mentioned business partnering, and I know we also talked about this a little bit before the show. I've been in finance since the invention of the telephone, I think. And so, watching the field evolve over the years, it's only in recent years that we started hearing about business partnering, and it is, like we talked about before the show, it's so important. And I think your approach to it and the way you guys are doing it there, could you walk me through sort of kind of your approach to business partnering and what benefits you see from it, and kind of your best secrets to really being truly embedded with the other departments and organizations?
Yeah, and maybe I would like also to explain it maybe from two angles. So first would be if you look at business partnering from the organization point of view, or if you like specifically top management point of view. So basically from the angle where you need to understand how to implement business partnering, how to make it work. What are these maybe prerequisites? What are these conditions which you need to take care about? Often when we talk about business partnering, it sounds like it's something what you can easily adopt. But in a way, I see that business partnering is a first of all, it's a mindset. It's also behavior, but it's also it's a certain ways of working. And in order to understand how it should be actually executed, what is the mission of the business partner, etc. You of course need to understand as an organization what goals you would like to be addressed by business partnering. Also, what would be the governance in the company in order to also support this, let's say, concept could work. That's maybe the first thing. Another thing is, of course, it's very hard to imagine how business partnering could work if in an organization there is no such fundamental thing like a proper data quality and availability, of course. Because as you may have heard, business partnering implies that finance people they devote most of their time being a sparring partner for one or another business function or unit. It also depends on specifically which role you also consider when you talk about business partnering. If you talk about CFO role, then of course it's first of all partnering to CEO. And in order to do that, you would like that support is also data driven. So the insights which business partner could extract, they should be also data driven. So without this kind of ground, it's very hard to imagine how that business partnering could happen. Talking from a point of view of a business partner as a role, I think there are key skills or capabilities which are required. First of all, is of course analytical. Analytical capability should be supported by very strong business acumen, because not understanding how your company is earning money, how your company is brewing, for example, how your company is delivering goods and stuff like that. So basically, without proper understanding of in details how processes are set up, how they're interlinked, how it's all being translated again back on the paper in ERP system, etc. I don't see that would make ability to provide with good data-driven insights to our stakeholders. Another skill which I find should be or is critical for a business partner role is ability to challenge and not only challenge but also show a direct direction to your stakeholders, and that of course also should be supported by strong negotiation skills, of course communication skills. That's probably the key things which I see when it comes to business partners.
Yeah, and I think it's really evolved as the expectation in the role of finance and FP&A has evolved, where prior to talking about business partnering and prior to FP&A branching off from controllership and being its own division, the idea was, finance, you could be in this ivory tower of you didn't touch the rest of the business. You were just reporting the numbers. If it wasn't in the general ledger, you didn't care. And it was all about, making sure that everything was accounted for in the right place, and that everything, that we're staying within budget, and then we are calling out any variances to the budget and all that. And then I think over time, as you've seen, there's a lot more automation now, and there's an expectation that beyond the automation, beyond being a cost center and beyond being a backward-looking reporting group, you've got to add some value to the business. And you're not going to do that if you don't get out and get into the business with operations, with marketing, with logistics, with all the different groups in the company. So it's made us as finance people. Yes, we are domain experts in finance, but then we're getting out and we have to understand the rest of the business. And I think that for a company moving to this, it's difficult at first because there can be this sort of, the finance person doesn't understand what we do, and they're just going to report things, and they're going to make it make us look bad by reporting numbers that we don't agree with. So going in that the partnership part is a real part of it. So you have to establish the trust of the group, and they have to trust you as well. So it's to be able to report, decide together, what are the KPIs? How are we defining them? How do we measure them and all that? I'm wondering if you guys have been doing this for a while, was it hard initially to establish that trust? And do the groups now, do you feel like business partnering is working well and that the teams are happy to have a finance analyst, kind of dedicated to them that understands their part of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I also wanted maybe to say, highlighting what are these prerequisites for business partnering organizations. So first of all, of course, top management or organization as such should foster this environment. And in Carlsberg, for example, I think it's happening in a very good way. So if you are a business partner in one of the business functions and working in the brewery, it's very appreciated, even strongly advised that you go in the field on a regular basis. If you work in a commercial function, you go together with sales representatives, with merchandisers to see how they work, what do they do. Then, of course, you discuss also how performance measurement is happening, what are the struggles, and the more questions you ask, the better, the more knowledge you get, and the better understanding you get what could be improved, what is not really working. Equally, if it's a supply chain function, you should get to the operations. You have to visit sites. You have to go and understand how production lines are working, how the process is set up, what are the roles there, who is doing what, and how, and again, try to make a link with the dashboards which you see or you prepare or you analyze, and so that you have this sequence or a logical chain built, first of all, in your head to understand that I know what each of these KPIs mean. I know what are the consequences of having this KPI, for example, going up or down, and sees these dependencies and interconnections. So definitely, when we talk about business partnering, we are not just meaning that a strong analyst sitting in the back office and digesting millions of data points. It's first of all a person who actually understands, who have seen how business is operating. What does it mean?
Exactly. And it adds so much more value. All right. Well, I want to go into a group of questions. I want to get your take on FP&A in general and talk about some of your experiences. I know, we're at the time of this recording, everybody's just gotten through budget season. We're sort of stabilizing right now and looking forward to the year and trying to figure out, next steps in the projects for the year and all that. But as we look back at budget season, one thing that's always fascinating when I talk to practitioners who've been doing this for a while, we love to hear about maybe some challenges that you've had to overcome. And I think just right on the heels of budget season, is there a challenging budget experience that you can recall at any point in your career that you'd like to share with our listeners?
In that question, probably I would not have any original answer. When it comes to budgeting, what is often a challenge is, let's say it can be very much different. It first of all, of course, would be very much dependent on the, so to say, maturity of the team, how senior team is, how many budgeting maybe cycles you have gone already through. That would mean that you know actually how to manage expectations. You know how to prepare for the budgeting process up front. Because of course the planning phase or activities is I think taking a fundamental part of the budgeting process. I mean planning of activities. So how you are going to exactly run the budgeting cycle, who is going to do what, how many meetings with whom you should have, and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, devote enough time to understand that alignment is going to take place in time and with right people, with right stakeholders. Yeah, the most maybe challenging experience. Well, I remember, of course, one year when we had to revise our demand plan 5 times over a few weeks' time, and it was all direct consequences of recalculating your profitability top line, and then being also able to recalculate or to review what implications does it have on your costs development and etc. I believe many of FP&A professionals have had similar kind of cases. So I most probably I will not have any more exciting story in this area.
It's funny when you talk about that. I mean, I think talking about having to redo the demand and thinking about rolling it all the way through the budget, that's where every year you try to get that model so right. You're trying to figure out, okay, this needs to be flexible because I'm going to have to pull out all the drivers and drop in a whole new model. And we're going to do this 31 times over the next couple of months as we figure this out. And it's every year a challenge. But with technology, it's getting a little bit easier. I mean, I did this long enough ago where we were doing everything in Excel, just with no help from really other software. So at least tech's helping a little bit on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, of course, technology today is a big enabler in efficiency in the budgeting. It's interesting that for some people, there is no really, they don't see a big difference between the budgeting and forecasting processes. And that's what makes eventually them actually to approach the budgeting process more as a forecasting process. So they really put their own maximum efforts on getting the accuracy close to 100%, and try to detail every nitty-gritty item in either it's your demand plan or your cost planning and structure, which is of course having its own consequences. Again, when we talk about the challenging experience, my professional career, I saw people were just burning out just because they didn't have the right approach to the process, doing more than expected or doing more than needed, and trying to go an extra mile with a very good intention, at the same time not realizing that that's actually not the objective of the process.
It's funny when you say that. I spent most of my career in private equity-backed companies with some PE analysts just constantly just getting all up and wanting me to explain every little thing and trying to go 9 levels deeper on everything I did. So I fell victim a lot of times in my career to there's that saying that what is it? The map is not the terrain, but you'd spend so much time in these models that became the reality, and you would rather than there's top down or bottom up budgeting or whatever, the forecast became this just trying to find correlations and overcomplicate it with these internal drivers and external drivers and all that, and trying to fit what the business is going to do to this model rather than something that accurately represents, and then if the PE, if they're telling you this is your revenue growth target, these are your cost cutting. So you try to model everything and then jam the real world into it. And it can be a nightmare, but I spent probably more time than I would care to admit in living in that reality.
Yeah, and that's actually I would say very resonates to how I also used to work, and actually probably currently working, because sometimes that much loving the analytical part
Yes.
of this job is that you get obsessed with these crazy ideas that you try to build something complex, which is absolutely time-consuming exercise, and then maybe it's not even maybe adding value much to the process. And again, talking about the objective of the work that you should accomplish, but at the same time, you get so much fun and excitement out of this exercise that you sit the days and nights and working on this different models and trying to get these things in some better shape, and also kind of challenge yourself on something more that eventually again it leads to some sometimes negative results that um, not only from the health point of view but also from the expectations point of view, because that's I think where there is maybe a thin border, is that you have to understand that this is minimum requirement, what is expected from me to deliver in this process, and that are all nice to have things, and you have to balance with those.
Yeah, and I mean, but to your point though, that's why most of us, that's why we are drawn to FP&A. It's like if you like the black and white nature of accounting with credits and debits and everything in a place, then that's for you. But if you like to geek out on statistics and math and building out, just trying to build out these great models. I mean, that's part of the reason that we come to FP&A. So I get it, and it is fun. And honestly, it would be that's why I do a lot of teaching now too, and I love going through and explaining how to build models and use complicated forecasting techniques and seasonality and trend and all that you put into models. It is fun to do that, but sometimes can be a little too too removed from the real world. We're getting close to end of time here, but I wanted to cover a couple of other questions. So first off, we talked a lot about where you've been and where your focus has been, but is there anything that's kind of top of mind for you right now, something you're trying to master, something you're focusing on in your career right now?
I have been continuously refining my financial modeling skills, but at this point of time, I think particularly interested in exploring different techniques to uncover the relationships between all possible multiple variables and to work on this future trends prediction. So in other words, just trying to get some practical use of various regression analysis. That's something which drives me a lot today.
Yep. Are you doing anything with AI or generative AI, any of the ChatGPT or anything like that?
No, not at this point of time. I actually tend to read a lot and hear a lot about it, but I still have not really found the practical way how to approach that. So something to work on.
Yep. That's kind of a personal passion of mine, is the only reason I ask. And it is interesting to see. I mean, there's, early on, people were able to see very stark applications of this is where you could use it in marketing or in other areas that are more qualitative than the sort of deterministic need that we have in finance. So, but I do. I mean, there's movement there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with AI in finance in the next couple of years too. All right. Well, a couple of personal questions to close this out. There's first off, we always love to ask our guest on the personal side, what's something that not many people know about you? Something that maybe we just by looking at your LinkedIn profile we wouldn't know.
Yeah, I think I generally I'm not really a social person. Yes, I do have some accounts in various social networks, but it's not that I'm actually living though in there. And also something maybe to work on in future as well. But well, I actually love coding. I used to do programming when I was in school over few years. And yeah, at some point, I actually gave up. It became somehow kind of pointless for me. I didn't have a vision why I would be continuing doing that. But apparently, of course, going through that type of learning and understanding, forming this structural, systematic thinking, that's still left with me. If there is a chance of writing some script somewhere in relation to one of another task which you could actually automate, even for the personal stuff, for the private stuff, let's say, I actually take a chance and I do that. So I really enjoy that.
Were you ever a VBA guy in Excel?
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and what about Python and Excel?
No, not yet. I've gone through the course at one point of time, but then I somehow could not really find a practical use of applying this skills in my daily job.
Same. I'm fascinated by it, and I think it is. I mean, a lot of people are going to do great things with it, but I'm not really a programmer, but I've done some citizen development and can use some Python, and I haven't been able to figure out, really where that use case is with Python in Excel. And I think it's going to emerge just like Copilot in Excel. I think Copilot right now, we don't really use it much. It's kind of like a Clippy, the old assistant from Microsoft Office. But I think they're going to get there, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. And actually, speaking of Excel, everybody's favorite question: what is your favorite Excel function and why?
Yeah. I would not maybe call it a favorite, as it would sound that I'm using it every day. The function called indirect, at one point of my professional career, actually helped me a lot to progress with complexity of my modeling solutions. So for those maybe who have not used it in very much, it's a volatile function, which means that every time you open the workbook, it recalculates the data. It definitely has pros and cons. So, for example, when it comes to big data files, you would not be willing to have a lot of these functions active in the workbook, just because it really slows down the work with the file. But as the benefit of that is that you can set up the dynamic ranges, and I think that's really something to explore if at some point you kind of stuck with your idea and you don't see how you could progress with specifically dynamic listing or conditional selection of something, then just have a look at this function, and especially it can be very good, widely used with other functions in combination.
Great. And I'm trying to think. I don't know that I've gotten that response from someone before, and it's been a while, being out of the trenches as I have the past few years, in CFO type roles. I'm not building the models like I used to, but thinking back, that is indirect is a great response there. And now I kind of want to go play around with that again. Well, Pavels, that's about it for the time that we have today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights and being on the show. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nan.